Hey everybody, this is Robot here from Vespa Motorsport and ScooterWest.com. So today I got presented with a challenge to upgrade the horns beyond the most upgraded horns I've ever upgraded on a Vespa. So this scooter belongs to Big Ed. He's on 90 Day Fiance. I don't need to talk any more about him, but he's got a pretty cool Witherspoon. It's got some pretty trick stuff on here. I'll show you those lights, those extra lights I put on there right when he got it. But if you look underneath the floorboard, it's got the most ridiculous horns I've ever put on a scooter. In the past, I've installed several Airhorns. They're like compact electric Airhorns. This one's got a set of twin electric horns, and maybe you'll hear it. You can see them under there. You can't even go up a curb with this thing because you'd smash the horns, and remarkably, the horns are still hanging in there. Well, how do you take that to the next level? Well, it's Big Ed style. You always go big or go home. So on his previous scooter, he had an LXV that we had to tell him no more electrical stuff. We had every light, every horn, and it was an electrical nightmare, like trying to get the glove box off. There was so much wiring going on. It was like it was nuts. We were like, no more, we can't do it. Well, Big Ed comes into the shop today. All my technicians see that he has two more sets of electric horns strapped to his back rack, and they were just shaking their heads. They're like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. But you know what? I always like a challenge, so I guess I'm the guy that's stuck with installing these. So let me show you what we got in-house for today. So the challenge Big Ed put me with was another pair of electric horns. I don't know what you put these on, I guess like a truck or something. They got some weight to them. They're like 10 pounds each or something. And he's like, oh, maybe we can put them here. I'm like, well, you know, that's plastic. It's not gonna work so well. And I was thinking, oh, maybe the rack. Before I even said the rack, he said, just put them on the front. And what does he mean by putting them on the front of the scooter? Drill holes right through the bodywork. So I got to position these. Of course, the rack's not going to quite work, but we'll cross that path when it comes time to start drilling holes to put these in. I don't know, I'm going to just start cringing when I'm drilling holes in the front bodywork of a new Vespa. But got to do what you got to do when somebody wants the big guns. So first, the tedious part. Gotta strip the glove box and the floorboard of the scooter. So let's get right to it. So I was happy to find that Big Ed has snuck one of our stickers in the glove box of the scooter. Well, I'm gonna get him back. He gave me some stickers of himself. I only wish I was cool enough to have my own sticker. I do have a robot sticker, but there we go. I'll sneak that in there. Yeah. Oops. Sorry, it's a little crooked, buddy. All right, got all the screws out of the glove box and the floorboard. Now time to do the dirty work and pull the bodywork apart. So I'll show you some of the custom wiring that's already under the hood that we already started out with for the fog lights and such. So if you look here, that's an accessory alarm connector that's found on most new Vespas, and we were able to tap the left and right turn signal and the ground. That was for the European turn signals that we wired in, did a custom job on that. And then you look on this side, you see some extra bonus wiring and this extra relay right here. This is a standard 30 amp relay for powering that air horn that's underneath, or it actually switches the circuit for the air horn. The standard button that's on the Vespa horn, you know, it's only capable of switching like 4 or 5 amps, which is just a standard little disc horn. Well, these big electric horns, you're talking at least 10, maybe 15 amps for each set. So, you know, using 8 or so. Well, now we're gonna have a total of 6 horns on the scooter. We're gonna have to upgrade this relay to a much larger relay, and I'm going to actually use the same size relay that's used to start the scooter, which is an 80 amp relay. Another thing we're going to do is get rid of the lead acid battery. We're going to put a lithium lithium ion battery in there, a lithium iron phosphate battery. Those just have much more punch on the amount of current they can deliver. So, you know, when you honk a horn, you want it to sound extra loud and brutal. So we're gonna put the upgraded battery in here, and that's how we're gonna get that all going. Another thing you can see on a 2018 or later Primavera is this extra little bonus connector with a loop here. That's for the newer style accessory side stand that locks down, and this is side stand safety switch. Look for the next video. I'll show how to put one of these side stands in. So a good rule of thumb before you start with any electrical work is go ahead and disconnect the battery. Start with the negative terminal. It's always a little safer to disconnect your negative terminal first. Make sure the terminals don't come back and make electrical contact to the battery. Actually disconnect the positive as well, and you can see there's an extra battery tender plug, and then there's already an extra bonus plug for the lighting. I already knew that Ed was gonna upgrade the electrical on this. I think I put an extra fuse circuit on this thing very early on, so hopefully there's an extra fuse circuit in here. For our new relay that we're going to use for powering the whole set of trumpets. Get the battery out of here. This will be changing that out. Yep, so you can see there's a pair of fuses already here that I already set up at one point. We'll see how that works out. Got to kind of remind myself how I did this. I'm going to get that relay out of here. This is normally a ground post, and there just happens to be enough threads where I can put a nut to hold a relay in here. There's the starter relay. And coming all the way from the standard factory horn is this twisted pair of wiring right here. It's the gray and the black wire. That comes from the factory horn. I already did that early on. So essentially the wires that went to the regular horn that's on a Vespa are just going through the pair of disc wires. The nice thing about these newer Vespas, they have nice insulating grommets through all the frame passages, so you can safely pass wires without it getting cut by the frame. You know, something that you run into issues with older Vespas. So I'll probably cut some of the zip ties. I know this wire goes down to the existing pair of horns underneath the bodywork there, and then this other red wire goes to the positive terminal through a fuse. So pretty much whenever you add accessories, you definitely need to fuse the circuits. You need to use the appropriate size fuse for the wiring you're using. You can see this is much thicker wiring than this. This is standard horn wiring, 20 gauge. And for these new horns, we're running 12 gauge everywhere. Well, for the new set of horns, we're gonna run even thicker wiring. So I already know I'm gonna have 3 pairs of horns wired in. Well, I want to kind of figure out how much current one pair of horns draws. I don't remember offhand. I probably calculated this out early on. So this is just a standard multimeter. It's got an amps range that's suitable for up to 10 amps, but typically you got to move the terminal over to this A for amps. And then we're going to set the meter to DC amps, and kind of even gives you a warning. And we're going to set the max, so I'll see how much it will draw. So this is the wire to the horns right here, and I'm going to go ahead and honk it. Just touch it to the positive terminal, and guess what? It overloads the fuse. So this thing is drawing way over 10 amps. These horns draw a ton of current. So I got to figure out what we're going to do, you know, what appropriate size wiring and that sort of thing. The nice thing is I could just hook up one horn and see how much it draws, and then I'll have an idea if I multiply by 6, essentially how much load. So at this point I got a full-blown science experiment going on. So we're just going to hook up one horn. So the negative terminal to a battery can just be any 12-volt battery. It's got a full charge, because you're not going to get an accurate reading if you got a weak battery. So we'll hook up the negative terminal, And we got a positive terminal. Let's just give it a test here. Let's do the same setup. We're just gonna have one of them here. So it looks like it draws, I think it just the peak, you know, so we're looking at 3.5 amps. So 3.5 times 6 horns, you got 7. We're looking at about 21 amps. So I think I could protect the circuit with a 25 or 30 amp, probably a 30 amp fuse, because when the battery is fully charged, it's probably closer to 3 amps. So we're gonna do a 30 amp circuit for all these fuses. This relay is rated for up to 30 amps. I'm still gonna go up with the 80 amp relay just to play it safe, but I think I have an idea what our load will be. So we already have a pair of fuse holders. There's one circuit going up to the fog lights, which is a, I don't know, 5 or 10 amp circuit. But you can see the wiring's already 12 or maybe even 10 gauge wiring. So it's perfectly suitable for a 30 amp intermittent load of a set of horns. So I have the 30 amp fuse for that fuse holder. And this wire pretty much leads right to this relay right here. So we're gonna go ahead and cut the existing relay out because the 80 amp relays use a much larger terminal. So we have the wire coming from our fuse holder. It's already a nice 12 gauge wire right here. And the terminals I have are a little bit on the large side. This is kind of a little cheat right here. You could fold over the wire and kind of make it a little thicker and then push it right onto the terminal. Because if you have too thin of a wire for the terminal, these yellow terminals are usually suitable for 10 gauge wire versus 12 gauge wire, 10 to 8 gauge if I recall. And now if we crimp it, we'll end up with a very tight and strong termination of the wire right there. And this leads to our existing horn. We already know that's there. I put that quick connect there because I figured the horns would probably get ripped off pretty quickly. They're still there, so we're doing pretty good. We got a brand new OEM starter relay, 58115R or a 584521. The part number for this relay, you can see it's got much larger terminals, so you know, we gotta set up the terminals. I'm gonna actually put some heat shrink tubing over this so there's no chance of it shorting, even though it is protected by fuse. Well, the existing horn switch ties to these pair of terminals here. And if I turn the key switch on, you'll hear the relay activate when I honk. So, you know, when I get the battery hooked up. Just listen. So you know the relay's working, we're all good. And it's just gonna go in the exact same position right down there. Kind of works pretty good. So we know that we're gonna have horns up off the leg shield, so I need to have an adequate length of 12 gauge wiring. This is really high quality wire. It's got really thick cross-link polyethylene insulation on it, much better than the vinyl junk that they sell at like an auto parts store or something. And we're just gonna pretty much divide the wires about halfway, you know, so we can run a pair for each pair of horns that are gonna be mounted on the leg shield. So first of all, we're concerned with the red wires, which are positives. Give it a nice tight squeeze there. Now we're gonna put some heat shrink over all these. The last thing I want is any of this stuff to short out. And now we're ready to connect them right to the new relay here. So we're all set. These big lugs right there. So relay is all set and in that corner all secure. And we have the pair of positive wires that are going to go up to the front. You can see I have a negative wire for the existing pair of electric air horns underneath, electric horns on this ground terminal. So I'm going to go ahead and tie these right to that terminal as well there. So we got our last ground terminal. Go ahead and make that crimp there. We'll tie it right off this existing bolt that we grounded. And the last electrical thing we're going to do is just kind of put some sheathing over the wiring just to protect it. So we have a pair of grounds and a pair of power wires for our new horns. So we know the horns are going to come up to the leg shield somewhere. So we'll just go ahead and take one pair. And we're going to do something about like that. So that's one pair. But first of all, I'll put a little sheathing. This is just vinyl sheathing for the wiring. There we go. So now we have our wiring for the right side. So I'll go ahead and route the wiring for the left side actually underneath the frame right here, and we'll pop it right through, and we'll tie right to our new horns, and then the wiring for the right side. We'll have that all ready. Now it's time for the fun part. We're going to start drilling some holes in the frame of the scooter. I don't know what to do here. You obviously have to have a really good mock-up before you just start going willy-nilly and drilling the holes here. So we already know the rack's going to have to be fixed down, or it's pretty much going to hit. If these horns are too high where they miss the rack, well, then they scrape on the light. So it looks like the rack's going to be fixed down all the time. So it's going to be something like right about there. And of course I want to mirror it to the other side so it looks very symmetrical. So first of all, I'll go ahead and fix this, the rack down. And for right now, I'll just use a zip tie to get it out of the way. So it looks like the closest spot for the extra lights we put is right about there. So yeah, I think that's where the horns want to go. And I think the best course of action is have this horn kind of follow the line of the leg shield edge. So something about right there. And the fortunate thing is this moves around, so that's good. I don't want to, can't really drill it right over top of the lens there. So it looks like I'll have that bracket right there flush with the edge of the leg shield trim. There we go. So we'll do that, and let's see what we could do about the this extra bracket. And I want to mirror those on the other side. And there's one way that you can do it with a measuring tape, or better yet, I'll cut a piece of paper and I'll be able to mirror it with a piece of paper if I cut a piece of paper and then flip it over. So that's probably going to be the best course of action. We're going to hike this up just a little bit, even though they're not quite as strong. So something like that. And it looks like we'll do something right there for the for our extra support bracket. So here I got my template, and well, the Vespa is symmetrical, so just flip the template right over and line it right up. I already made little holes where those markers spots are, and we could just do something like that. All right, so the best way to start a hole with a drill, and especially in metal, is with a center punch. This is like a retracting center punch. I can't believe I'm going to do this right now, but and that makes like a little detent, so the drill will start without issues. So, well, these upper mounts, they're using a 6mm hole, so either drill a little larger than 6mm or 1/4 inch drill bit works just as well. So, so go ahead and deburr the holes. It's just like a special type of reamer that does that. Kind of just gets the little burrs. If you're familiar with drilling metal, kind of leaves behind a little burr. So go ahead and try to get rid of the burrs. So in order to pass the wiring for the new electric horns through, we're going to use a rubber grommet, and you drill the hole, to the outside diameter about 3/8 inch for this size grommet, and we're going to just step these holes up, and I kind of have an idea where I want to put the wiring. So there you go. Get the grommet on that side, and we'll do the repeat with the other side. So the horn comes with a nice little piece of rubber, kind of isolate it off the frame after we did all our damage. And then I'm going to take these Phillips screws, put a big fender washer, kind of covers up most of the hole, and we'll get it all lined up and position the setup here. And again, being careful not to let that slide around on the frame. Nice thing is it has one more little rubber bit right here. Go ahead and slide that right underneath. And the last thing is we could send our wires right through that grommet. All right, so we got one pair all installed. So let's move over to the other side. I also found taking the trim off made the job a little bit easier. So pretty much repeat on the other side here. So I have one problem with these right-hand horns. I want to look symmetrical, so I'm going to swap the shorter trumpet on the inside, move the longer trumpet on the outside. So let's get to it. All right, so I got the pair of trumpets on here, the pair of trumpets. Let's just get the wiring going. Let's see what these things sound like. All right, so we'll trim the wiring. We have the pair of positives and negatives, and the wires coming from our harness here. So we can go ahead and put the lithium equivalent battery. The nice thing about these lithium batteries is they put a higher voltage and they can sustain a lot more current when cranking. Drop the battery into its spot, and just like the lead acid standard battery, use similar style terminals. All right, the moment of truth. Before we put the floorboard and the glove box back on, let's see what happens. That is obnoxiously loud. All right, well, thanks for watching. I don't know if that's something you want to do on your own scooter, but maybe it gave you ideas. And until next time, Robot here for Vespa Motorsport and ScooterWest.com. And big thanks to Big Ed for letting us have the wonderful opportunity to do to your scooter there.